Story 1. I have the entire Office suite of products from my Office 97, with the registry keys and everything, and I have them installed every time I get a new computer. I refuse to pay subscriptions for software I already have that works perfectly fine. Each time I get a new computer, they're like, well, we don't know if these are going to work, and I'm like, that's okay, just load them on there, and I delete the new subscription-based Office stuff and use the old suite, and it works great. I am frustrated with Microsoft for turning this into an annual cash cow. Story 2. Cash. I regularly go to the automated teller machine and use only cash for smaller purchases, lunch, and the like. Just because I'm paranoid doesn't mean they are not out there to get me. Story 3. Not out of spite, but I still use old technology. I still write checks and place them in very thick non-see-through envelopes, use yellow legal pads to take notes, meat composition books, a large paper dictionary, a 50-year-old coffee percolator, order from the old Vermont store, can fruits, use rabbit ears for television, and many other things. I use technology only if it makes my life easier. Certainly a smartphone, but no social media. The last 10 years of my career as a teacher, I used a smartboard. Sometimes people laugh at me and call me an old boomer, but anything that makes me comfortable, I do it as long as it doesn't hurt someone. It did upset me, though, when I wrote to my best friend's son who graduated college as an engineer, and he couldn't read my letter because it was written in cursive. I'll probably be the last person on earth writing an old-fashioned letter. That simply tells people that you care enough to spend 10 or 15 minutes of your time thinking about them. Story 4. I avoid using cloud anything wherever possible. It's partly habit based on having an unreliable internet connection for years, and partly because I know that the cloud isn't some magical place where things just exist. It's just marketing talk for someone else's computer, and I don't trust it with my stuff. Story 5. My 1997 sedan. It's got buttons, knobs, and switches, no touchscreens. It's easy to maintain. There are no excessive safety features. It doesn't need software updates, uses little gas, oil, and electricity, and it runs like a dream. Story 6. Mechanical watch. When recently my Garmin device went into a boot loop because of an update right before a workout, it gave me a push to stop with the wearable devices and stick to a reliable Swiss watch. Story 7. Incandescent light bulbs. I suffer from migraines, and I hate LED or fluorescent light. I've still got dozens of spares in the shed. They should last me the rest of my life. Story 8. Not necessarily completely outdated, but I refuse to learn how to use Canva or other presentation makers. I've been using PowerPoint since I was about 8, and I'm not stopping anytime soon. Story 9. The PlayStation 2 is my only console, and I still use it. I am not putting up with the end of support, services going down, subscriptions, and required online connection just to work. When the PlayStation 4 becomes a paperweight, my PlayStation 2 will still be playing games like it always has. Story 10. I hardly ever touch my phone unless I need to search for something when I'm out. At home, I do all of my texting and internet browsing on my MacBook. It may be clunkier and less portable, but I'll always be more comfortable with a mouse and a tactile keyboard than with a handheld touchscreen. Story 11. Up until about 18 months or so ago, I was using a Samsung Note 3 that was my everyday phone. I carried it in my pocket for over 8 years until there were too many necessary applications that stopped working on its outdated hardware. I also still run Windows 7 on my primary laptop because it's probably the fastest and most stable I've ever used since Windows XP. My 12-year-old car has a manual gearbox and none of the modern braking, parking, or lane assist sensors. Story 12. IBM correcting Selectric 2 typewriter. The Rolls-Royce of typewriters. I had a Selectric 3 with, apparently, the 2 new ribbon that you can't get anymore, so the shop offered to downgrade me when the Selectric 3 broke a hub. I accepted. Story 13. Not necessarily technology, but I still prefer going to places to shop than ordering everything online. I suppose it's not outdated, but we've seen a massive shift to just ordering everything off Amazon or elsewhere. Story 14. My phone is a 7-year-old model. My last 2 phones were this model, and I plan for my next 2 to be as well. There just hasn't been anything since then that could convince me to upgrade. While this one is still available and cheaper, I will keep using it. Story 15. I have an older head unit in my truck that connects to my iPod Classic, and it's my jukebox for driving. I don't need any fancy touchscreen nonsense for driving. Story 16. Carbureted vehicles with no proprietary computers can be fixed anywhere and are cheap. They last forever and don't need to be thrown away and replaced every 10 years. Story 17. I have a countertop electric frying pan from 1976. It was my Nana's because that woman was very into fancy kitchen technology until about 1980. Side story. She was the microwave queen. We still laugh at all the microwave steaks and hamburgers we had to eat. Anyway, this electric frying pan is solid stainless steel. Not a speck of Teflon or anything on it. With a touch of oil, nothing sticks. This thing still heats perfectly evenly. You cannot convince me to cook breakfast on anything but it. Pancakes, fried potatoes, bacon, sausages, French toast, eggs. This ancient pan is my go-to for anything breakfast because everything else scorches food, has food stick unless using massive grease, or has Teflon. Second side story. I also own and still use her cast iron frying pan that was a wedding present in 1940. Anemia? Don't know her. Story 18. 1996 Maytag Dependable Care Washing Machine. Bought new by my parents. It's been worked hard for just under 30 years now. It just doesn't break. It's done thousands and thousands of loads of laundry. Yes, it uses more water than a new machine. I do not care. It washes my clothes thoroughly and quickly. It was designed to be durable and reliable, and it doesn't do anything more than it needs to do. That's exactly what I want from a washing machine. Story 19. A non-modern vehicle. My 2014 Nissan Frontier has all of the features I want it to, except Bluetooth audio, and it's been incredibly reliable. I've been looking into a new one, but with all of the data privacy violations, the additional features that don't add any real value to the truck, and the fact that a new one costs about $50,000, I'm just going to have to drive this one into the ground. Story 20. Mac OS X 10.11 on a 2009 MacBook Pro. It's less out of spite and more to see how many laps around the sun it can clear with zero issues. Edit. And a circa 2000 iMac G3 I picked up last week. The plan is to update it to 10.3.9 and run Photoshop 7, like I did in 2005. Story 21. I have a smart television in my living room, but I have a regular television in my bedroom. I'm not changing or upgrading the bedroom television because I know it's not listening or watching me in there. Also, fewer intrusive ads are a good feature. Story 22. Original Xbox that still works, DVD tray works. And a Sega handheld, button needs a fix but it also works. A Toshiba satellite laptop, no longer made in circulation. Story 23. 1993 Toyota pickup. I make decent money and could afford a new car no problem. Modern trucks are bloated monstrosities with too many electronics and creature comforts. Also, I just want to drive a manual transmission, and I hear modern manuals have hill assist and are smart, whatever that means. Story 24. iPad Pro 10.5, 2017. Did not get the latest major update even though it has more RAM than comparable models that did and still runs way faster than them. Cannot reward Apple's planned obsolescence with any money until it completely dies. Story 25. John Wayne can opener. The X took all the kitchen things. All of them. I have an old-fashioned can opener. It's been half a year, and I still use it because every time I use it, I remember what she took from me. Pettiness and spite. Story 26. A few weeks ago, I went to Goodwill and got a clock CD radio and some CDs. I'm tired of ads, subscription services, songs disappearing due to licensing issues, buffering, glitching, crashing, charging and battery life, and planned obsolescence of smart devices. Instead, I just press a button, and it turns on and sound comes out almost instantly. It's amazing. Story 27. The iTunes Store. I want to listen to one or fewer new songs per month, so it makes way more sense to buy than subscribe to my music. I'm still listening to MP3s that began life on a CD I purchased in 1998. Story 28. MP3 format for all my music. I'm old enough to have played cassette tapes and CDs and even survived the Napster years. But today's streaming services irritate me because I have to continuously pay them if I want to listen to music without ads. Sure, I can listen for free, but then I'd have to listen to the ads. I just like to hit play without having an internet connection, and 4 hours later, music is still playing without my needing to interact with the service. Story 29. Macromedia Fireworks. It's an image editor specialized for vector graphics that was used in the early 2000s to create web designs. It has all the basic image editing features I need and still runs perfectly on Windows 11. If Photoshop scares you, but you sometimes need to do basic design, Fireworks is perfect. Story 30. My aunt lives in an old house and collects old stuff, thanks to my uncle, her brother, who buys items from estate sales to resell. She has a few record players and a bunch of old records. When I visit, I bring a new record to play there. I got into it, and now I have an old record player and a tiny but growing collection of vinyl records. I find I enjoy listening to music more this way. It's not that the music is better quality or anything, at least not to my ears, but it is more deliberate. I put on an album and the player plays the first side and then stops. I then have to decide if I want to keep going, get up and flip it and play the second side. When I would listen to Spotify or something similar, if I put on an album or playlist, it would end, but the music would just keep going to whatever the player algorithm felt was next, and eventually I'd get annoyed by the songs and shut it off. That just doesn't happen with a record player. Plus, the records belong to me. No app will ever delete them. I won't lose access to them if there's a contract dispute. Also, it appears all the music streaming companies are predatory and unethical at best. Story 31. Somehow, music has become obnoxious to use. Yes, you can get almost any track ever, but Bluetooth is a pain and I don't want it to be interrupted by other stuff. So, I have a cassette deck and speakers and I play the cassettes of albums I like. I just put it in and press play. It's even easier than a CD. Story 32. A blackboard in the kitchen is invaluable. As we run out of something, it goes on the board. Yes, we could tell Alexa, but scribbling it on the board is faster, rather than getting errors with Alexa, downloading the list, then flipping between apps while shopping on the Morrison's app. Tried both and analog won out. Story 33. I just don't want to be disturbed with an incoming phone call during an awesome instrumental solo. So there's no way I am going to listen to music on modern multifunction phones. Story 34. I do not really have a choice, but I do not think I will ever switch to a new car because of the technology in them. I like my buttons, dials, and switches. Moving everything to the screen and steering wheel is not ideal. Story 35. Atari 520 and a Commodore 64. No one will take them away from me. I will be buried with them. Also, the Atari was upgraded to 1 megabyte memory. You could feel the power. Story 36. Pen and paper. Also, when I call companies, I avoid pressing options as if I am on a rotary phone. I just hold. That way, they answer quicker instead of recorded messages. Story 37. In a world of technology and with my job requiring everything to be uploaded, I keep a physical paper trail of everything I do. For the record, I turn 30 at the end of the month, so I'm not someone resistant to change. Story 38. Vehicles built before the whole controller area network, CAN, bus system have simpler setups. My truck has one computer that runs the engine, features a manual transmission, and lacks anti-lock braking system, ABS, or stability control, but it has upgraded wheels, tires, brakes, and suspension. It runs with first-year onboard diagnostics 2, OBD2. My car also has one computer that manages the engine and a manual transmission, with no ABS, stability control, airbags, motorized seatbelts, or anything newer than onboard diagnostics 0, OBD0. The check engine light only comes on due to about 5 common, affordable sensors failing after 15 to 25 years. Both vehicles, at peak maintenance, achieve over 25 miles per gallon, MPG. The truck gets 27 miles per gallon, and the car gets nearly 40 miles per gallon. Both have upgrade parts available for less than half the price of equivalent parts for newer cars. They can both be easily adapted to run on E85 fuel or be turbocharged for increased fuel economy, as in using cheaper gas and less fuel in the mountains when driving uphill half the time. I had a 2000 Pontiac Grand Prix GT, which was on the cusp of having too much technology for me. It had automatic climate controls, an engine module linked to the transmission module, and an integrated system that could cause issues like setting off the airbags in the dashboard or crippling the transmission or heating, ventilation, and air conditioning (HVAC) if I made a mistake with the radio wiring. Story 39. My iPod Nano. I don't want to run with my phone. I want to disconnect from it. My iPod lets me do that. Bonus points for me if I use the wired earbuds over my shocks. Story 40. CDs in my car that I burned throughout college. I still have one or two that have made it since high school. They play loud, and my Bluetooth is never loud enough. Auxiliary cord kind of sucks too. Story 41. Newspapers, books, journals, pen and paper, and post-it notes. I think it's more of a tactile thing for me versus spite, but I like the idea of it being spiteful. Story 42. A large phone under 5 inches. Phones were normal-sized until Apple came out with the widescreen iPhone that was unusably large at 3.5 inches. Then size exploded to nearly 4 inches over the next decade. Not really phones at that extreme bloated size, so everyone called them phablets and openly mocked fools dragging around devices that were over 3.5 inches, and now there isn't a single medium-sized phone in existence. The Unihertz Atom is nice at 2.4 inches, but it's stuck on Android 9. Also, you can get a $100 tiny phone that takes dual SIM, has a removable battery, headphone jack, infrared remote, and is waterproof, but no other phone makers do any of that and still charge hundreds for featureless tablets. Story 43. Nokia 105. No camera. Cost me £11 from, I think, 3 store in Westfield, Stratford in 2018. Seller gave me the biggest look of disgust when I asked for one. Still going strong. Battery lasts about 4 days. Gorgeous font on the screen. Gift gaff £6 a month. Never had, nor will ever have, a phone more complicated. If they stop making them, you can email me.